Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman continuing my review for Dragon Ball GT Part 2. So let's get straight into the video. So, one of the biggest problems I had with Dragon Ball GT was the death of Piccolo. He died for almost no reason to destroy the Black Star Dragon Balls, and I felt that they missed out a very important character that could have made much more usage later on in the fights to follow. Now, we do see that there's a very peaceful point in Dragon Ball GT that lasted an episode where the Z Fighters go into a tournament and Goku gets defeated by a nerdy little kid, which was one of the funniest moments in all of the entire series. Now, we do see that Mr. Satan defeats Majin, and because of Majin Buu's influence, Oob loses the fight, although I felt that Mr. Satan should have been defeated so that Majin could replace him as the next great fighter to the Earthlings. Now we move on to a very serious point in which Android 17 reappears, and Trunks gets severely injured in a car accident, which I had a huge problem with. We then see that after this, all of the villains come back from the past to taunt the Earth. And I do have a problem with the fact that Cooler is one of the weak villains, especially since he's way stronger than Frieza. And I would like it if you guys can point out all of the villains that you actually see in these two scenes that I'm showing right now. But moving on from this, I do feel that all of the villains coming back was a great concept, but I feel that Cell and Frieza were misused. I definitely feel like they should have gone back to the Earth to have more of a difference in the fight against the Z Fighters, especially Cell, since he could have made a great return in his fight with Gohan and the other Z Warriors, which would have been awesome to see them come back. Now we see that after this, we see that Super Android 17 is formed by the fusion of Hellfighter 17 and regular Android 17, which I thought was a pretty interesting concept, although I felt it could have been executed a bit more clearly. Super Android 17 makes quick work out of the Z Fighters, and I feel that this is the point of Dragon Ball GT in which the series becomes Dragon Ball Goku's time, as all of the characters that were somewhat useful before become completely useless. Now we see that Android 17 is just basically wiping out all of the Z Warriors without really trying, and all of the characters were so much weaker than him they wouldn't really put up a fight, especially Vegeta, who I felt should have been way stronger than Super Android 17 at this point. Now Piccolo does make some use in the saga by opening up the portal for Goku to go back to the Earth, although I felt that Goku should have simply just used his instant transmission to get out of there. Now, we do see that Goku is fighting against Super Android 17, but in his fight with Super Android 17, one of the biggest problems that I had was the fact that Goku just kept blasting Super Android 17, and he didn't even think about the fact that it was powering him up until later on, especially with his 10 times red Kamehameha. And after this, the fight just changes against Goku. I felt that Goku was too smart of a fighter to not find this out much earlier. Now, we do see that Super Android 17 easily wipes out Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Goku needs the assistance of Android 18 in order to defeat her brother. Now, I didn't necessarily like the way that Android 18 was taunting him, and the fact that Android 17 basically just gave up the fight so that they could defeat him, as I personally felt that they should have been defeated the way most villains are defeated, by simply being destroyed instead of just giving up a fight, especially since you're a villain. But Goku, with the help of Android 18, does manage to defeat Super Android 17, and I found that this was a pretty interesting arc, but I definitely felt that this should have been much longer and much more serious, as this could have been arguably the best point in the entire Dragon Ball GT series. Now, the Black Star Dragon Ball saga, or should I say, the Shadow Dragon arc, was probably the best arc in the entire series. But it also was arguably the worst in the series too, as all of the Z Fighters were basically just waiting for Goku and Pan to defeat all of the Shadow Dragons. Now, Hei Shenron as a villain was pretty interesting. I liked the concept of him, but I personally felt that he was just too weak to be struggled with so much. We do move on to the Raid Shenron arc, in which I felt that just like the Super Android 17 arc, he was defeated by the rain, and I felt that Goku and Pan should have found a way to defeat him without him having to weaken his own self. Now, the Oceanus arc was probably one of the best Shadow Dragon arcs, and I definitely liked the fight that she had with Goku as Goku was spinning around. And I felt this fight should have been much longer and Goku should have been fighting at full power instead of in his base form. Now, Naturon Shenron has a very cool ability as he basically takes people's bodies and just manipulates them, kind of similar to how Baby was in a way. But I felt that he was just too cowardly to be taken serious. Now, Nova Shenron I had a huge problem with because I don't personally feel that you should have a good, evil Shadow Dragon since they're supposed to be evil, and how he makes friends with Goku. But I do feel like his powers were cool. Now, Ice Shenron was actually my favorite Shadow Dragon of all, but I do feel like the fight with Nova Shenron and Ice Shenron should have been like a tag battle between Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, which would have been an awesome tag battle to see. Now, we move on to the Sin Shenron and Omega Shenron arc, in which we see that Omega Shenron then becomes the most powerful villain in Dragon Ball history. But I do have to say that I don't necessarily like the fact that all of the Z Warriors were basically just powering up Goku once again, just like in the Baby Saga, as they weren't really showing us anything new on the actual series. Now, I do like the concept of Omega Shenron absorbing all of the Dragon Balls to basically take all of the powers, and he becomes the ultimate Shadow Dragon. But I don't necessarily like the fact that Goku manages to defeat him with his own powers, even as Omega Shenron, but yet later on when he fights with Vegeta, Omega Shenron is just the same in terms of power and Goku can't defeat him. I didn't necessarily like this. But I do like the fact that Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta does make an appearance, which I don't necessarily like the fact that they skipped Super Saiyan 3, but it was interesting to see for the series itself. Now, I do like the fact that they do fuse into Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, who becomes the most powerful fighter in all of Dragon Ball history. But I do feel that this was not very fun to see how he was just dominating Omega Shenron, and this should have been the last fight in the series to see a struggle against the both of them. Now, one huge problem that I had with this saga was the fact that Oob offers to fuse with them and they completely turned it down. It would have been awesome to see an adult fusion with those characters, and afterwards Gogeta does defuse back into both Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, and after this we see a huge turn in the battle between Omega Shenron and Goku and Vegeta. Now, easily we can say that both Vegeta and Goku didn't stand a chance at this point, although Goku should have been stronger. But I do like the fact that Goku did eat the Dragon Ball to bring back Nova Shenron, although I felt that he should have stayed dead, but it was an interesting concept that I can't really throw away too much. Now, Nova Shenron didn't really stand a chance, and he easily dies, which makes a lot of sense, and he doesn't really make an impact. Now, the series does do a pretty good job in portraying how serious this moment is by Goku almost being killed by Omega Shenron's negative energy blast, and we see later on that Omega Shenron easily defeats the Z Fighters who came to avenge Goku, and he severely injures Vegeta, and when all hope seems lost, Goku asks for energy and he defeats Omega Shenron, which I found was an extremely predictable ending with the Spirit Bomb, but it was assisted by the universe, so it was pretty interesting to see. And I will make a final video giving my overall opinion on Dragon Ball GT, and thank you for watching my review. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys.